Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On this beautiful Sunday, I'm your host Ibrahim Dawood, and I invite you to join me on our talk against substance abuse. Of course, being the silly season that's approaching and all the challenges that go with it, especially the youngsters that are going to school. Schools are breaking up, getting ready for shutdown, holidays. Everybody's working hard. All the youth are working hard to do well for the examination. And of course, they want to be rewarded. They want that one day off with their friends, and they want to spend time before school shuts down with their friends, the near and dear friends. And of course, whilst all this is happening, somebody's child could get taken into addiction, very innocent and unknowingly. So, silly season is this time of the year. Well, why silly season? Because we start to do silly things. Not only our youth, not only the youngsters, we adults as well. Everybody looks forward to this time of the year to have fun, have a break, take a break from everything. Those that are working normally will go on shutdown, want to go for a little break because there are lots of holidays in between. And those of us that are studying want to take a break. People, our families from far and wide will be visiting. We may be going out to other provinces, maybe going on overseas trips. But there's a lot of risks that come with this. Whilst all this excitement is taking place, there are lots of risks. And with that in mind, I have a youngster with me that was just like everybody else, innocently brought up a good family, went to school, and it all started during the so-called silly season. And 20 years later, deep into this bottomless pit of addiction and really struggling to find his way out. I'd like to introduce our guest, our brother Jack. That's not his real name. That will be giving us his experience. Remember, these things, these discussions, or these motivational speakers are not here to glorify addiction. It's a horrible life. It's a miserable life. It's a life that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. It's something that I wouldn't wish on any family. It is the worst experience any family could have when it comes to addiction, because there is no peace. I was reading the other day of a case where the mother from Port Elizabeth put a hit on her son. She paid someone to kill her son. Just try and understand that. A mother, our mothers that love us so much, for a mother to pay someone to kill her son will tell you what she could have been through. So it is one of the worst challenges in any home, and we need to really understand the seriousness of the problem. Looking at the statistics, they're not very good in this country. We need to be extra cautious, extra careful, and not be naive. So this program and all these speakers that we bring are here to show us the seriousness of the problem, not to glorify it, not to think that it's a glorification thing. It's a serious problem. So I'd like to introduce, good afternoon, our brother Jack. How are you?
Good afternoon, Uncle Ibrahim. I'm very well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm well, thank you. And I've got our brother, our co-host Hamza here with me. Hamza Khan, he's going to be my co-host. He will be joining me in the discussion. I think we'd like to start off with Jack and his type of the upbringing, the kind of family that he grew up in, and how it all started.
Okay, we can start from the beginning of where it all went wrong. But before that, I'd like to say that I came from a normal family.
A good family.
Yeah, good family, a very respectable family, parents, good members of the community.
I heard you were you're an A+ pupil in school.
Yeah, up until the later stages of my schooling career.
And your brother is quite high in the technology field. Your sisters, they've done very well. It's just you that you are more intelligent than all of them, and you ended up becoming the one that messed up with addiction.
Well, I wouldn't like to say that I'm more intelligent than them, because that would take away the things that they've accomplished.
Exactly.
So I do come from a very
I would say
well-educated family.
their EQ was higher than yours.
Most definitely. Most definitely. We can agree on that. But, I came from a normal house, my father and mother. My father was a working man. My mother stayed at home because she was looking after my sister and things like that. We had no issues, when I was growing up. Stayed in a good house. I went to school. Things were okay. But I always had this feeling inside of me, like, things are boring at home and things like that. Because my family, they're straight, and, being exposed to a lot of the media and exposed to a lot of things of the area that I came from, I found an excitement in some of those things, But obviously, coming from the upbringing that I had, I wasn't able to express myself in those ways because most of the things that I was inclined to was wrong. So I tried to keep it at bay for a lot of my schooling career. But then when it came to my later teenage years, coming up like 15, 16, 17, towards going to matric, my parents gave me a little more freedom at that time, obviously because I was a good student.
Because you're a 15-year-old, you're working hard in school, and you're growing up to be a young man, so they gave you a little bit of freedom.
Yeah, because I have an older brother and he was also given that, and there was no problems, So what happened was I started joining a lot of these guys that I was seeing, that are much older than me. And I didn't realize at the time that what I was seeing was just the surface, just the things that I wanted to see.
You only saw the good side.
Yes,
the happy,
I saw what I
clappy.
wanted to see at that time, So I started joining these guys and stuff. I felt a bit out of place at first because I wasn't really, exposed to these things coming from my house. So these guys were doing like smoking weed and, and I used to see they're always on the road and they, talking to girls and things like this. So I was a bit shy and stuff prior to this. So, I wanted to in my idea, I wanted to fit in and blossom, quote unquote. So anyway, I started joining them and stuff. And then even though I never used to try anything at that time, I still felt like, I was with the cool guys and things like that. So, and I do things out of my character at that time that, like, start talking to girls and, swearing and speaking and, doing all these things. And then slowly, as time got by, I thought that I had to do certain things just to keep with this crowd.
To fit in
with them and stay there. So then I think it was one day that some of the friends my age, they were bunking school. And then I asked them, hey, where y'all going? What y'all up to, And they said, no.
What time of the year was that?
This was just after the exam period.
The final examination.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
so this is what I'm talking about.
Some of them were done with all the subjects that they did. And I was still doing mine. But now, because they were finishing up with the exams for the year end, they was going to a house party. So they asked me if I wanted to come, and without hesitation, I said yes. And I think I was in grade 10 at the time. That was the first time that I actually smoked weed. And I did experiment before that, with alcohol and things like that. But I was never, too much inclined to those things. But then when I started on that house party, when I started with the weed, I think that was the initial stage where I really started to embrace this lifestyle, because then I was like one of them now. And 6 months later, it started gradually, obviously. It wasn't an everyday thing in the beginning because I did feel, like, hey, at this thing I'm doing, what is wrong? What if I get caught at home? I thought of the consequences and what it meant, disrespecting, letting my family down, being disrespectful. Plus, too, my father's, he's the chairman of he was the chairman of the primary school that's in our area as well. So he's an upstanding member of the community at that time. And for me to be doing things like this, it brings a lot of disgrace to my family. So I try to keep it under the wraps for quite a while, maybe about 6 months. And, but then it just started progressing, it started getting worse. And then I started with the alcohol and things like that. And then my grades started dropping.
That was the following year.
Yes, the following year, because that was year end,
Okay.
obviously. So grade 11 and 12 was basically a blur to me because I was so involved in all these things. And but at that time, it was just weed and alcohol. My grades were gone bad. So I told myself that final, you know what, I'll try and, you know, do better, and I'll try and keep these things off. But I couldn't. I couldn't at that time. I couldn't. I was too deep in at that time. And then in matric, that's where I really started my full-blown addiction with all drugs, you know, because at that time now I was turning 18 and things like that. So my parents still gave me a break. They still had faith in me, you know. My family still said, hey, you know what, it's going
Parents
through a
want to
phase.
trust their children.
You
They
know,
all want
yeah, because they knew the potential that I had. And they just thought, you know what, if we leave him, he'll phase out of it, you know.
Yeah,
at
grow
that
out
time.
of it.
Yeah, it's just a phase.
And that's the mindset of most of the parents. They'll just try and sweep it under the carpet, hoping it's a phase, it'll just clear up. But what we don't realize, these drugs that you get now, you just can't walk away from it. You can get deeper into it, but getting out of it.
I completely agree. And even though I knew this, I became, because the guys that I was joining, I didn't realize how much alike we were. Because because I wanted to be like that, I started trying everything in my power to fit in with them, and I became a liar, manipulative, aggressive, you know, cynical, all these bad characteristics which I still possess today. I think it stemmed from what I wanted to do at that time, you know, and it just stuck with me. So having said that, now I used to manipulate everything in the situation. So when I reached matric, that's where I started experimenting with other drugs, you know, hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, and things like that. And it didn't go very well for me at that time. I managed to get through matric and stuff. And the following year, my brother helped me out going to study and things like that there. Got through the first year fine. But I was already deep in the addiction. And now I was all the time with the guys that I was joining, because there's like a blockade of flats there where I stay. So most of my time I was there. And because I didn't have a very good relationship with my dad, I always justified myself to say, I can't stay at home.
Why? Because of what was the reason for not having a good relationship with the dad?
At that time, my brother moved to Joburg, so I was alone. My sister was very young at that time, so it was just me at home. And when he used to come from work, oh, where's Jack? You know, why is he not at home?
Because he was a bit firm on you.
Yes, so I took it the wrong way at that
And your
time.
mom was the one on a little bit on the soft
Yeah,
side.
she kind of understood. Like I said, I was so manipulative. She understood where I was coming from. So I told her, hey, I don't like to be at home and hear all this nonsense every day from my father and things like that. That's why I don't want to be at home, you know. This is why I like going out. Then I'd rather come home when he's asleep, and then I can come, because I don't want to deal with all.
You use that to your advantage.
Absolutely, 100%. That's exactly what I did. And I did that for a lot of years after that as well. Because it worked for me, you know. It was the perfect
You
excuse.
found an excuse.
It was the perfect
we would call it an underlying problem in many cases. In many instances,
Yes.
it'll be considered an underlying problem. Dad
know,
and you were not getting on.
Up until very recently, I still used it as an underlying
And
issue,
you've exploited that.
100%. To the fullest, actually. And so while I was there, then I got introduced to a lot of the people. Now, it went from the guys that were using that I was staying with to the guys who were selling, you know, and because it's a close-knit community. So my behavior was so bad and stuff that they took notice of me. And, you know, they asked me like, hey, you stay over here, your father is so-and-so, and what you doing here? Like, and I said, hey, me, I'm not my father and things like that. I like, this is what I like and things. So, you know, I started getting closer to those people now. I left the group that I was actually initially wanted to be with. And then I looked for something higher, because while I was there, I was seeing these guys that are selling drugs and things like that. They're driving nice cars. And I was at that impressionable age. So driving nice cars, having nice women and all these things in my head. Now, this is what was happening. And, you know, I started joining that crowd.
Yeah.
It was basically just a need to fit in somewhere because I told myself that I don't fit in at home. Let me go somewhere where I feel I belong. And then these guys, when I started joining them, what I didn't realize at that time though, this is all my uphill of what I was thinking at that time. What I didn't realize is all the other things that come with this.
Consequences.
You understand? So, well, one day while we were in a garage, they had like a tuck shop there with pool tables and things like that there. So the guys used to sell out of there. So I used to always be inside there. And we were sitting there. It was about 12 o'clock at night. And we just hear gunshots from everywhere. So we flipped the pool table over and we're sitting down. And that was the first time I had a negative experience there. I just want to explain to you how warped my thinking was at that time. And as they came by, it was a drive-by shooting. I wasn't aware of all these things at that time. It was a drive-by shooting, and when they done, lucky none of us we came out unscathed. And when it was done, I was shocked and things like that there, but I couldn't understand what was happening at that time. But when they explained to me, hey, these guys from another area, they came here to come and kill all of us and stuff like that there. I felt like I was part of something even bigger.
Yeah, you're part of a bigger movement.
Now I'm in the crew now, and I didn't realize my life was at stake. Maybe,
That's totally dysfunctional.
Absolutely. So then, because I was part of that, then they really took a liking for me because I didn't run and things like that. So even though I should have been terrified, now if that happened to me, I'd be absolutely terrified. I might pee myself.
But that time you want that status.
Yeah, I was looking for stripes, as it were, So as time went back now, by this time I was in my early 20s and stuff like that there. Failed, dropped out of college, doing odd jobs here and there. My parents tried taking me up to Pretoria, but before that, they told me to start working there because they said, hey, you know what, you're one of us now, you need to start making money like us and things like that. So I started outside there was a drug lord where I stay. So I started standing outside his house and just giving beggars money. That's how I started working there.
Giving beggars money?
Yeah, he used to give me a stack of notes, and any beggar that comes there, I used to give them money. That was my job. That's all I had.
So he was a very big-hearted dealer.
No, but when I think about it, a lot of things that he did was to protect himself so the community doesn't turn against him because he was ruining everybody's lives that were there. Yeah. I didn't realize that at that time. I was too naive, immature, and I felt like I was indoctrinated because they told me this is how you're supposed to think. You're not supposed to show any feelings. You're not supposed to be empathetic. You're not supposed to show any sympathy towards anybody because it makes you look weak. So it started from there, and it gradually progressed. I started doing other things. I started watching for cops and things like that. So by that time, my parents realized, hey, you know what, this boy, he's going to end up dying here. So my father took me to work with him. That was the first time I went to rehab also.
Okay.
And I was so deep in addiction on my way back from the rehab. I spent like a week in the rehab.
How much you paid for the rehab?
That rehab at that time, it was 35,000 Rand, and it was 500 Rand for every day that I stayed there. So I stayed there for like a week. And I relapsed on the way back home. While I was driving back, my uncle brought me, I was bringing me home. I stole...
We stop for an ad break, inshallah, and we'll carry on thereafter. Assalamu alaikum, good to be back. Very quickly, Jack, you're talking about, your the life of addiction and how it took you down this miserable road. Okay, if you can just take us maybe through, you've been through quite a few rehabs.
Yes.
How many of them have you been through?
R.A.U.F my 8th. My 8th rehab.
This is your 8th rehab?
Yes.
Okay, so it reached a point where it probably got out of control, because I was chatting with your dad, and the one day he told me, my son took everything out of it. Is it true? He sold everything.
Yes.
Including the geyser, the taps, and the electrical wires. Is that true?
That is true. That is true.
So you emptied your house to a point where there was nothing left in the house.
Yeah, basically, yes.
The water pipes, your dad had to take a bucket and go and fetch water from the water meter on the roadside.
Yeah. It reached that point.
It's so hard to believe that we could do such things. And your dad being a heart patient as well.
Yeah, he is ill, very ill right now.
Now imagine, you sell everything in your house. You sell everything. The windows, you sell the doors, you sell the electrical cables, you sell the plumbing, you sell everything. What would... Has it not crossed your mind that you're doing something terrible?
At that time, all I wanted was to stay where I was. I was comfortable in my addiction.
But that's addiction.
I was very comfortable.
You can't see it.
You
can see it, but you can't. You don't know, you got no control.
Also, these drugs nowadays, they make you numb to anything, Uncle Ibrahim.
Exactly.
I didn't even care that my father's sick. I didn't even care that my mother loves me that much, and she used to come. She used to cry and tell me, what are you doing? You're killing yourself.
Your family had to abandon the house because of you.
Yeah, basically the house was left abandoned.
So, okay. So then tell us what happened? I mean, you were dealing after that?
Yeah, after the being in and out of rehabs and things like that, what happened was I ended up dealing again, going to prison for 3 years. I came out. I went back to the only thing that I knew, which was dealing again. Tried odd jobs. They didn't work because I had absolutely no concentration or experience or aspirations, because I was looking at, working here where I'm making in a month, where my hard sweat, I can make in 3-4 days. So that was my mindset at the time, not thinking about, the satisfaction of a hard day's work and, doing things the right way. And my whole life, I've been looking for an easy way out,
And there's one very interesting thing that stands out in your recovery, on the recovery side, is when your dad, we've had a family meeting, and you had indicated that there was a serious issue between you and your dad. And because your dad apparently had you arrested because of some theft, right, in the house. I think it was only fair that he got some type of retribution, and he had to teach you a lesson that what you're doing is totally incorrect. But I don't think you saw the merit in what he did. Instead, it made you more angry towards your dad.
Well, at the time, I would have to agree with you, Uncle Ibrahim. But on top of that as well, leave the retribution and letting me see consequences and things like that. He was trying to help me.
But you couldn't see it.
I couldn't see it because...
Even in your recovery after almost a year.
Yes, absolutely. You
still see your dad. It has been embedded, it's been ingrained, it's stuck in your head that my dad is the problem.
It was a very deep-seated issue that I had because...
deep-seated.
It was very deep-seated. And, now when I think about it, what he saw, I couldn't see. Is because even if I came, like I said, I've been to so many rehabs. If I didn't go, I came straight to R.A.U.F from prison. If I didn't go to prison first, I would have never stayed in my recovery. I would have ran away. And I think he saw something that I couldn't see. Mm-hmm. And that's what I live with now, So, but even at that time, let me point out, like, even when I came out, I was so deep in denial. And the day I came out, this is a very important thing that I'd like to speak about. The day I came out of prison, I went to court. And I still had the idea of running away at that time. And I had some money at home. Well, it was in one of my bank accounts. And I told my father, I sat on the pavement and I told him, if you don't help me to take out my money because I'm going to rehab, I want to buy some stuff, I won't jump in the car. But my intention was to run away. Once I got the money, I was going to leave them there in the shopping mall or the bank or wherever it was. And I was going to go. I was going to go back to what I knew, That's how deep set in this thing I was, I had no foresight of a normal life at that time. I always thought while in my addiction, I'll die a smoker, I'll die in this life.
You had surrendered to it totally.
Totally. I thought I'll either get killed or I'll either overdose, because that's what happened to me before I went to prison. It was around December, about two years back, 2022 this was. And they have a big thing there, where I was working, and where they hand out free drugs and things like that. And I was in charge of that at that time. So I was so selfish and so manipulative. I even stole half of the things that I was supposed to give away, and I ended up with a lot of drugs on me. And I just had this party for like a week, which my body completely shut down, My mother had to actually come pick me up from there. She had to come all the way there into the drug den and take me out of there. That's how serious my problem was at that time. That, I think, was my turning point, where my mother had to come in there for me, looking for me. And that's when I realized, you know what, I think I need help now.
Did you OD at that time?
Yes, I did. I was terrible. You
were in hospital?
Yeah. No, they called paramedics and stuff at home, and then they just put me on a saline drip and things like that, and they flushed my system. I was fine after that.
Okay. So tell us how you, what was the turning point? What brought you into recovery and how it all started?
Okay.
The road to recovery.
Like I was explaining, before I could run away, when I sat on the pavement, then my father, he could see there were no change. So then, and there was no other way he could have got me to sit in the car, because I was very, very hard-headed. So he phoned my mother and he asked my mother, hey, you got this guy's ID book and things like that. I don't know what he wants to do, but I need to take him to the rehab now. They already accepting him, And I went to my mother's house. And when I went to my mother's house, I think this was the first time in 10 years she actually saw me clean. I was still in a very bad state. Don't get me wrong. When I came out of prison.
Okay.
But I was clean. I was clean. Why I decided to get clean is because my sister, she was so stressed out by the trauma that I caused at home, with just stealing all the stuff and then going into prison. And, the police, they assaulted me very badly at that time. They broke both my shoulders and things like that. So I came into R.A.U.F very battered. But when I saw my mother's face and saw, that light in her face when she saw me clean after so long, that's when I surrendered. And I told my father, I'd leave all the money and things like that. They just take me straight to R.A.U.F. Take me straight to R.A.U.F. I need to come right. And then I came in. It was a bit difficult for me at the beginning when I was in R.A.U.F. because I didn't know I didn't know what to expect at the time, because I would no idea of program at that time, because I haven't attended any.
Has your dad was he in the program whilst you were in prison, or how did it all start?
Yes, he was. He did. What happened was he asked one of his friends, my son, hey, he's looking for help. How can I help him? And somebody recommended R.A.U.F's phone number to him. So he was actually attending program much earlier to when I started. So I think he had a better mindset and a better understanding at that time, than I did. Definitely than I did, because even when I came to R.A.U.F, it was a bit of a struggle for me, You
were not willing to come in.
I didn't want to.
But then your dad, by attending those programs, I'm sure he got empowered and knew exactly how to get you in.
100%. That's why I said prior. So when I came into R.A.U.F, when I was in the early parts, I did have a lot of problem with authority, with people telling me what to do, with the waking up at a certain time, a lot of things, a lot of rules that were set into place. Ill discipline completely. And I struggled with that for a long time, maybe like the first 3 months in the farm, waking up in the mornings and that, and even things like getting myself back to my religion and things like that there, which R.A.U.F also they stress upon, and I couldn't deal for the first 3 months. I never used to speak at all in the first 3 months to anybody or anything, because I thought, this is a mistake. Why am I here, And somebody gave us a motivation one day, and from there I opened my eyes. I said, hey, you know what, I'm not the only one with this problem, and this problem can't beat me anymore. It took away 18 years of my life. How much more can it take from me? And that's when I started embracing. I said, you know what, no, even though I don't know what to do, let me just shut my mouth and try. whatever it takes, I'm gonna try, because I got broken completely by addiction. I'm not gonna carry on getting broken now by normality. I need to put my life right. It's been long enough. After 18 years, I got nothing to show for it, you know. What was the benefits? Then I started looking at my life and thinking about, with all this time I've been glorifying this life. What do I have to show for it if it was so glamorous? And that's when I started thinking through introspection. That's what started making me embrace recovery. And now I think almost 2 years in, the way I think has very much changed. Especially now, even up till recently, you know, I'm still finding out things. When I saw my father again, when I saw my mother again after like almost a year when I went home, it was a big eye opener. But I was still, it still shows me that I still have a lot to do as well. I'm still trying. Things will get better, but I need to learn to stay off the fast lane.
Yeah, so you're 2 years in the program, and of course you're in reintegration, but we've got some challenges, and being the silly season that we always be talking about, we cancel all reintegrations. So nobody's going home until the end of December. Tell us, how bad did it get during the silly season? I know it started in the silly season. You OD'd in the silly season. So how bad? What was the atmosphere like as the silly season approaches us, or as it got closer to December?
I think 90% of my relapses were during silly season. I'll give you another big one. I was like I told you, my dad tried to get me out of these drug dens and things like that. So he had a business at the time. He told me to come work with him, and I wanted to buy a vehicle at that time with my own money, because I wanted to try and do something for myself for a change. And I saved up money for like 2 years. And I don't know, I was at home for Christmas, and then it just sprung to me at that time, you know what, hey, if I was there, they're giving away free drugs and things like that. Next day I relapsed. Very next day I relapsed. I stole money from my father's safe, about 500 rand. I went and I relapsed. He kicked me out of the house. He told me, hey, now I've been trying with you so long, so much. Take your things and go, All that money that I saved for that 2 years, it was maybe about 75 to 100,000. I spent it in a week. Silly season, from December 26th to the 2nd.
That's silly season for you.
Exactly.
You lose all your senses. You don't even think beyond that. You don't even think a day beyond that. It's only about having fun during that time of day. And that's the dangerous thing. That's the very, very dangerous thing, because, and in addiction, there's no consequential thinking, there's no accountability, there's no reasoning, nothing. You just do as you please. You only see yourself as, all you see is the drug in front of you. You don't see beyond that.
That's the problem. That's the biggest problem I had, is because now when I look back on it, I got a sister, she's 10 years my minor. And what kind of an example was I setting for her? Another one of the things that I always think about is when she was in high school, they asked them to do a speech on drugs, and she did it on me. I can only, I can only imagine now what she must have been going through at that time. To be in school, and plus two, because I was well known around the area, everybody knew my sister's brother. My sister, her brother's a drug addict, drug dealer, gangster.
And how painful that must have been for her, being a girl. We are in addiction. We all become so selfish. You don't think what your siblings are going through, what your parents are going through. It's only about you, and you have the liberty, the right to get angry with anybody, say what you like, but nobody can say anything to you.
Yeah. It was
always
never my
played
fault.
like a victim.
It was never my fault.
But in reality, you all were the oppressors.
100%. So much so that what I used to think, even my sister, up till now, she's scared to get into a relationship with somebody because of the way she saw, the way I treated women, the way I treated my family. Up till now, she's still single. She's working now. She's got an honors degree and things like that. She's too scared to get into a relationship up till now. And I thought I had underlying issues,
Okay, tell us some of the things that you've learned, now that you are 2 years clean, some of the things that you've learned about yourself or about recovery that's helping you maintain sobriety.
one of the biggest things what I'm practicing right now is patience. I never had any patience before. So, and the idea that, things take time. And discipline, a lot of discipline. As I told you, I was a very ill-disciplined person. Now I'm up at 3 o'clock every morning. I go through the whole day. I try and work as hard as I can because I was very lazy and I always wanted the easy way out. So one of the things R.A.U.F has really instilled in me is the benefits of a hard day's work. It's something that I'd definitely be able to appreciate on the outside when I do get a normal job like other people when I'm ready. It's taught me responsibility. It's taught me how to trust in other people because I never trusted anybody before other than myself, and which was very, very inconducive to what I was, the way I was living,
Okay.
And it's taught me to come closer to my Creator, man. One of the things which I lacked was spirituality, very much so. And obviously the program teaches us how to, handle our emotions better, how to identify them as well. So now I know when I'm getting into a conflict. I know when, my red lights are flashing and things like that. I know how to approach a situation. I know how to think, and I know when I'm in danger now. I'm much more aware of my surroundings as well.
Just listening to your life, Jack, as hectic as your life has been, all the rock bottoms and the low points and the similarities that I see in myself with you, the reality is this is not an uncommon. It's not as if your life is an extreme version of addiction. This is something it's a typical example of the power addiction has, how it grips our lives, how it destroys. In R.A.U.F how many people share the similar rock bottom, hectic life experiences, the damage we've done to our families, to our loved ones, to our own lives through addiction. So as extreme as your life is, the reality is it's not uncommon. It's across the board with addiction. This is what it does to us, and with emphasis on silly season, which is the time of the year we're in now, how ironic it is that in your life, you started, the very first time you experimented with drugs, much like in my case, was during this time of the year, was during silly season. Why? And you gave the reason why. You had almost come to an end with your exams. Your friends are done with the exams. It's the end of the year. People have taken off work. House parties, typical. This is what happens this time of the year. Rage, matric rage. People are on leave, going on holiday, going to the chalet, doing things which are seemingly typical for the December period. But in this day and age, what's incorporated with those typical holidays? It's drugs. It's access to things we previously didn't have access in. You experimented for the very first time during this period, and you OD'd years later in this very same period. That is why we put so much emphasis on this time of the year. It's the silly season.
Exactly. And the thing is, we don't take these things seriously. We don't realize that, sometimes we lose them. As people, so-called normal thinking people, we also lose the plot. We tend to, we don't see beyond the silly season. And we think that, we just go with the flow.
Yeah.
That could be dangerous for everybody. So, it's that time of day where you need to keep your focus and maintain your balance and do what is right. Because, as I'm speaking, there could be other potential drug addicts amongst our youth in the next year that will probably start taking drugs during this month or next month. So, that is why as parents, they need to be very vigilant. And the youngsters, the youth, need to also understand that this problem is serious and it's a one-way ticket, The success rate is only 1% internationally. Of course, the R.A.U.F program is very intense and we have a very good success rate. But if you look at the international stats, it's only 1%. So it's a lot of very hard work. Recovery is a very painful journey.
100%, Uncle Ibrahim. Also, what I wanted to say is that it's also very important for our parents and our kids to educate themselves on substance abuse, because like Hamza was saying, this thing, it's a common thing, it's common on a broad spectrum of the guys that are there. The thing is that need for gratification combined with a low EQ is a recipe for disaster. So having parents better equipping themselves on understanding addiction and understanding this time of year, I think it would safeguard a lot of the children at that time. because I think if I didn't manipulate my mother at the time as well, and a lot of the times, I think I would have been in a much better situation, because my father was right all this time. If I can think back, he maybe he had a wrong way, or maybe I thought he had a wrong way of showing that he cares, and that just put me in a much worse situation. And when I come to think about it now, it's because my EQ was low at the time, and I couldn't understand what he was trying to do.
You had a high IQ and a low EQ. I've just got a correspondence here. If your life is going to change, you have to be the one to change it. It has to be you. You can't keep blaming anyone. You are wherever you are because you created it. Stop having a victim mentality. It's going to cost you grow up, which is so true. People in addiction have this fear, the mentality or the mindset of entitlement. They feel that, and I'm sure even you felt the same. And of course, our policy or our theme is, or our approach to recovery is self-reformation through self-realization. Rectification through identification. So it's only you that can change your life. Your mom and your dad, they put all the things in place, all the measures in place, and then you have to walk this journey. So you got yourself into this mess. Only you can get yourself out of it, and that's so true. Stands in line with what the WhatsApp that you've got just now. That yes, the problem is in you, and the solution lies within you. And I think everybody, we have this mindset that they need to put him right. They need to put him right. Yes, we can put him right, but he must want to come right, and he must embrace change. If otherwise, so that is why in your case, we had to break through your parent first, change their mindset. Because dad and mom had a different understanding, and that's why you've been through 8 facilities, not realizing the work. They had to kick the ball. They had to make the first move. They had to kick this whole recovery program into gear, and that's what brought you in. Had they not done that, they would be probably sitting there and crying for the rest of their lives. But through them attending and empowering and educating themselves, they knew exactly what to do with you when you came out of prison. They made all the right moves, and here you're sitting 2 years clean. So, whilst we put a lot of emphasis on the recovery, but we need to understand that the recovery is not in a good mental state to understand the seriousness of the problem. Although he knows there's a problem, but he is passed the buck onto somebody. He found a scapegoat. He blames it on that person. So it's us, people like us, that need to initiate the change. We need to, as parents, as caregivers, as brothers, as siblings, we need to create the right environment for the change. Instead, what we do is we enable. We would enable, and we would give them whatever they want. And then we say, but we're trying so hard. But you're feeding his addiction. So empower the recovery. Feed the recovery and not the addiction. In your case, your dad was feeding your addiction until you got to a point where he learned how to feed your recovery. And 100%. That's what brought about change. But going back to our topic on, the main issue is silly season. And, we need to advise our youngsters, those that are in universities, in colleges, in schools, people that are working, that this is a very, very critical time of the year. It's the time when money is freely available. Everybody's in this holiday atmosphere, and I'm sure even Hamza has been, I wouldn't say a victim, but one of those that also fell into this trap during the silly season. So it's that time of the year that we all have to put our minds and be focused so that we come out of this season unscathed, inshallah. I'm your host, Ibrahim Dawood. Hamza, shukran, jazakallah for giving me your time. Jack, thanks for giving me your time.
Pleasure.
Until next week, I'm your host, Ibrahim Dawood. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.